What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Simply Walk the Talk. So, we've had a little bit of a hiatus, and there's been a lot that's happened over the last few weeks. And wanted to give you guys just a bit of an update on some of the things happening in my life. We had 2023 was a whirlwind of a year, and I wrapped up a world tour with Roger Waters, and that was great, but there was obviously loads of challenges that came with that. And it's interesting because as I was looking back on everything that happened throughout 2023, I realized that I had only been in New York for about 2 months the entire year, which means I was traveling all over, working a lot. To start this out, we wanted to give you a quick little recap on my year of traveling, touring, doing all kinds of work all over the world. And then we're going to jump into some of the other things that happened throughout the holidays, some tragic events that happened in my life with my family. And then we're going to kick off into the new year and all the crazy stuff that's been happening in the news already. We're a few days into the new year and things are going wild.
Welcome to Simply Walk the Talk. Our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. If you want to change your body and mind, you must change what it is you do most of the time. This podcast explores all things health, wellness, fitness, lifestyle, and biohacking. Stay tuned as we explore various thoughts, methods, and experiences from a multitude of conversations between our interesting guests and experts through many fields of work. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Simply walk the talk. Simply walk the talk.
This past year touring, so I think you have talked to me, that know me, know that I love touring. I love being on tour because it's a great way to travel the world on someone else's dime and to work, to do what I love, to connect with so many different people, experience different cultures, enjoy loads of good food, have some good weather. I get a chance to be on the beach, all sorts of things. And throughout 2023, I toured with Roger in Europe and the UK, which was amazing and great. Then we had a bit of a break. I came back to New York, and then we toured. We had like a small little different tour in London, which wasn't quite a tour. It was just two special shows, which embarked the new re-release of Dark Side of the Moon, which was incredible. There were two shows that Roger did at the Palladium, the London Palladium, and that was incredible. And then from there, we went straight to Brazil. We started in Brasilia, and that was the wrap up of the tour. So the tour was called This Is Not a Drill. Roger is 80 years old, and out of all the tours that I've ever worked on, it was by far the most difficult. And I say that because if you aren't familiar with Roger and his work, then you might be shocked to know that he is a huge voice when it comes to the Israel and Palestine conflict. He's been on a platform talking about everything that's been happening in Gaza for many years, for as long as I've known him, and even before. I think he's been talking about this for about 17 years or so. And we knew that once everything started to happen on October 7th, we knew that there was going to be a lot of heat coming his way because that's just kind of how it's been over the years. And sure enough, right around this time, I saw everything that was happening to him. And it was so disheartening to see the amount of criticism and flack that he was getting, up into the point where when we were touring throughout South America, we found ourselves being able to not stay in certain hotels in various cities. And that was the first time that I've ever experienced that. And so literally, I think it was in Argentina and in Uruguay and in Bogota. Those were the three countries or cities that basically were like, look, we don't want you in our hotels. And then several other hotels followed suit by saying, we also don't want you in our hotel. And I think for a couple of those cities, I think it was Argentina and Uruguay, the band was okay. It was just Roger and basically just Roger. So anybody that is very closely connected to Roger, which is called the A group, I happen to be a part of the A group, that also affected everyone in the A group. And so in Argentina, we literally, up until like the day before, we had to scramble to figure out where we're going to stay. And fortunately, there was a situation in which one of the band members had a friend who had a vacant apartment that we were able to stay in. So that's what happened in Argentina. It was wild. In Uruguay, that was kind of wild because it was a silver lining in that we didn't get a chance to stay in Montevideo. I think the band ended up staying in Argentina, Buenos Aires, but the A party, we had to stay in Punta del Este, which I I was blown away at how cool that was, because it was like, although we were being subjected to this level of uh of attack, really. I mean, if you think about it, it's like this level of attack was actually quite serene and quite nice to be in Punta del Este, and that was never on my radar, but it certainly is now. So it's a place that I hope to return to in the future because it was beautiful, great food. We had a great family that took care of us, that basically opened up their home, and I mean, we were well taken care of. It obviously wasn't the level of a five-star hotel like we're used to staying in, but it was in some ways even better. So that was interesting. And I think a lot of us were kind of thinking to ourselves, we can't wait to finish this tour because it was a lot of stress for everyone. So we wrapped the tour. I come back home, and the first thing I'm thinking to myself is, okay, I've been gone on the road for all these months. I want to go and see my kids. And so I spent about 4 days in New York City, got my things together, and I booked a flight to go see my kids in Budapest. And as luck would have it, or unluck would have it, I found like one of the best deals I could find going there, because I don't think there are direct flights from New York to Budapest. At least I didn't find any. And so in order to find like the most reasonable, efficient, price effective trip for me, let's just call it what it is. I found the cheapest flight I could find. And that basically meant that I needed to have a 12-hour layover in Amsterdam. And I thought to myself, 12-hour layover in Amsterdam is not too bad, right? Maybe I could go out into the city, enjoy some of the, you know, the things you enjoy in Amsterdam. And then as I got there, I realized, no, this is a lot more involved than just like putting my things in a locker and going out, because I have to check back in and blah, blah, blah. So I decided to spend 12 hours inside of an airport in one terminal. And it was discombobulating. Like, I just was walking around, literally pacing the entire place. I'm sure people thought I was crazy. And then I get a phone call from my brother. And it was really interesting because I thought, hey, my brother's calling me. This is cool. I'm on the way to go see my kids. And my brother gives me the news that my father has passed away. And because I was already discombobulated, I thought, wait, like what do you mean? Like, I don't get it. Like, I'm actually going to be going to see him right after his birthday. His birthday's on Christmas Day. And I was there just kind of in the terminal thinking to myself, no, this can't be, right? Because like, I'm supposed to go and see him. Obviously, like, I was just not in my right mind, because it just hadn't dawned on me. It hadn't hit me. And in fact, it still didn't hit me until I got to Budapest, because I had to make the decision of, do I turn around and just go back to the States, or do I go ahead and go and see my kids at least for 24 hours, which is ultimately what I decided to do, because I had Christmas gifts. I planned on seeing my kids for Christmas and having a good time and enjoying the time with them. And that ended up turning into a quick in and out. And what was the most gut-wrenching thing that I think I could ever experience was spending time with my kids. I was thinking to myself, I was going to slip out the morning to go back to Oklahoma to go to the States. I thought I was going to slip out without my kids seeing me so that I could, just not have to deal with the pain of that. And right as I have my luggage ready to go, I got my jacket on. I ordered a car to go to the airport. Right as I'm at the door, my son magically wakes up and wants to go to the bathroom. And as he goes to the bathroom, he sees Papa at the door, ready to leave with his coat on it. And it was like he had this look on his face that I don't think I've ever experienced. And it was kind of like he didn't say this, but he had this look on his face that was like, but you just got here. Why are you leaving? You've been gone all this time and now you're leaving. And if you can imagine, he's not 5 yet. He'll be 5 next month. It's hard to explain to a 5-year-old or a kid that you've got to leave yet again because my father died or because any reason. And so, my ex-partner and I, we try to do our best to make sure that he understands, yet it is what it is, right? Like it just, Papa's not there yet again. So I deal with that, right? I grieved the night of my getting to Budapest. I wake up, I deal with the grief of seeing my son completely destroyed by me leaving again. And I get to Oklahoma, and it just is like I'm hit in the face with everything that one would be faced with when you lose a parent. And this was the first time it's ever happened to me. So my mom is still alive, although they're divorced. They've been divorced since I was a little kid. And I arrive, and it's like I don't even have time to grieve anymore. It's literally like I have to be faced with the fact of setting up a funeral, dealing with the cost of a funeral. And it's just my brother and I, basically. So my brother had been spending the last 2.5 years with my dad. He was in and out of the hospital. My brother was there every step of the way. So I know all of this is tough on him. But then it was like, okay, little brother's here. I think I'm the, the one that is, when it comes to like finances and business and things like that, I'm the one that is usually in charge of kind of all that. My brother's is there for all the logistics. And so together we are a really good team. And we get to the funeral home, and we're faced with, hey guys, so we know that you're grieving. We know this is a tough time. However, we need to talk about the cost of all of this, or the business side of all of this. And my brother and I are like, okay, yeah. And the fact that it's a holiday weekend, because this was right before Christmas. So the funeral was going to happen on Christmas, like pre-Christmas weekend. And the fact that my father was obese, he had lost a ton of weight, but he was still considered obese. We were faced with the fact that he had to have a custom casket, a custom vault, and a holiday weekend. And that brought that total to about, well, it was exactly $15,888. So we're talking about $16,000. So if you can just imagine for a moment that I'm sitting there just dealing with a 12-hour layover, dealing with the loss of my father, dealing with the pain that I caused my son, and then getting to Oklahoma City, and then eventually going to my hometown to realize that not only do we have to deal with all of this, we also have to come out of pocket somehow, come out of pocket for $16,000. So I simply asked, because I'm very practical here, I say, okay, where does insurance come into place with all of this? Unfortunately, we don't work with insurance anymore. Okay, got it. Do you have any payment plans? Not directly through us. We do with a third party, but even that is, takes some time. Okay. When is payment expected to be made? And this lovely young lady, she's just doing her job. She literally says, well, we need services. We need payment when services are rendered. And so I was like, I'm sure the look on my face was like, whoa. And so I just asked, just to confirm, I said, okay, so you mean once we have the funeral and everything is wrapped up, you're saying that's when you need to be paid? She's like, well, the fact that, Christmas is here, we could probably wait until like right after Christmas. I'm like, Okay. So I look at my brother, just kind of shake my head and go, all right, it's back to like work mode. Forget about grieving. Let's go back to work. Right. So on the car trip back to Oklahoma City, which is about 40 minutes, I construct a plan to do a GoFundMe project because I'm like, who has $16,000 just laying around for sudden death? Right. And no matter like what kind of insurance there was, nobody was reaching out, especially over a holiday weekend. So we had to do it. And I don't know if whoever's watching this right now, like you may have seen a GoFundMe project that my brother and I did, but we just got raw and real, set up my phone, put it right there on the couch at my brother's house in Oklahoma City in Edmond, and we just pleaded to the community. And it was one of the toughest things to do because we had to be very vulnerable, and our family is usually very private when it comes to things like this. In fact, this is the reason why you don't see pictures of my kids on social media or anything. And I try not to talk too much about like my dad's situation, the fact that he was morbidly obese. I mean, I've talked about it a little bit on this podcast, but it was so hard to actually sit there and go, we need help. But we did it. And in approximately 26 hours, in less than 2 days, almost just over one day, we got every single dime to cover the cost of the funeral. The only thing that's still outstanding is we still have to have a little bit of money to cover the headstone. But I mean that's the beauty that came from it. And then also I think the service itself was amazing. So, in the end, it was all good. It's all good now. But I just have to say, huge shout out, huge thank you to the community that helped, to everyone that came to see me despite having plans already for the holidays. It just goes to show how important my dad was to the community. He had such a huge impact, and that was what was most beautiful for me. Like the fact that I know that I'm living my dad's legacy, and then I'm passing on my legacy to my kids. And I just that's really all I can say. I mean, there was so many people that sent out condolences and heartfelt messages, and it was beautiful. And so if you want to see any of those videos or links, I have it all. We ended up doing 3 videos pertaining to the GoFundMe project, and ultimately we raised $17,500, which was very, very helpful despite everything that was going on. So I know this is a long rant, but that's just me getting it off my chest because a lot of people are asking, and I wanted to just put it out there. So, Gordon, thanks for sitting through that.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure, man. I'm glad it all worked out. I was in DC when I saw the message and saw some of the updates, and I, just immediately felt like, geez, just all the things you just went through, and then hearing even more of it was even more stressful than I was realizing. So I'm so happy everything worked out, and yeah, I think it's never easy, but I think there are some beautiful silver linings that I saw too, just with you and your brother alone, and seeing his journey. And I don't know, I think that, yeah, man, and there's not much more
It's not
to be said. It's beautiful, really.
well. I'm actually glad that you said that. So 2 things. One, if anyone's interested, just to show you how difficult this was for my brother and I. My brother is almost polar opposite from me when it comes to like being in social media, being on camera, doing podcasts, and doing all these things. And so if you watch some of those videos, you can just see how uncomfortable he was in trying to do this.
Mhm.
But I applaud him because I know this was like getting way out of his comfort zone. And I think that's the reason why it was also so helpful, is because I think people really got a chance to see the raw, true realness of a family in distress. And so that part was amazing. The other part that I think is helpful based on what you just said is that a lot of times people, like, we don't know what to say or what to do in times of grief. And sometimes words mean everything or means nothing. And so I can just maybe say what I felt throughout this. Every message was was felt, right? Whether a person gave money or whether they sent flowers or they, any gesture is felt. And it was so difficult trying to respond to every single person that reached out. But I must say that it's okay sometimes to not know the right words, because there are no words, right? When you do experience someone passing, like a family member or a parent even, or maybe even your own child, like there almost is no words, but being there for people is what means the most. Knowing that you can have someone to talk to if you so want, knowing that you have support, that means the world. So I now know, and I realize looking back on my life, the various times when I had close friends who had a death in their family, I didn't know what to do then. And now all I can say is I still wouldn't know what to say, but I know what to do. And that's to make sure to be there for them at all costs, And so that's all I have to say about that.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Look, I think every wise man understands as you get older, it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's really what matters. And so this is one of those things that will really, show the true colors of that and show the beautiful people who step up and those kind of things. So once again, it sounds like you have a lot of people who love you in your life who stepped up, and then in and of itself, it's a beautiful reward to see. No easy way to pivot whenever you're ready. I know we touched on the life update, these things, but also the world's fucking crazy, people. No news alert for most people. But your thoughts. We can jump to some of the first up, but is there anything else? I know we were. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean it's just like, obviously there's the holidays, right? And so the holidays is obviously forever changed for me and my family, but it doesn't have to be dark or bad, because I was able to celebrate New Year's kind of a fresh, clean slate. I put out a post that I felt was spot on, because I went to, obviously my brother allowed me to use his car while I was home. And so being the good brother that I can be, I always make sure he had a full tank of gas. I even went and got his car washed. And so I was like, you know what? This is very, very sort of comparative to what's going on in my life right now. Cleaning off the car, having a fresh start right at the beginning of the year. And so I did this cool post, or I feel like it's cool, that just talks about cleaning up your life and having new intentions. And you can forget about resolutions, but like, as long as we understand that we can start fresh, that's powerful. And so I was able to go to watch the NBA Thunder, the Oklahoma City Thunder, play against New York Knicks, and they played against the Brooklyn Nets. So like, that's how I celebrated the new year, watching my team play. And then we start the new year. Of course, I did some journeys, some psilocybin journeys,
oh, nice.
which was very helpful in trying to understand grief and being empathetic and sympathetic to others and myself. And then
did you do those before or after with your father?
So I did it right after.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I did it right after. I mean, I tend to have like a regular schedule of psilocybin, but during that time period, like I kind of, because the traveling was crazy, so I had like stopped for a little bit. But then right when this happened, I mean, I wasn't with my kids. It was when I got home to Oklahoma City. I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna need something, maybe like not necessarily depend on chemicals to get me into a certain state, but I knew that it would at least push whatever is coming up, right? It opens, opens up the portal, helps with closure, and that was powerful. And then I had a few friends talking to me about it, and so I got a chance to kind of connect with people that I hadn't connected with in a long time, talking about this very thing. And so, like, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but there were a number of things that started out this new year. I finally got my brother to work out. I got, he had been on this journey of losing a lot of weight. He's lost 70 pounds, probably more now. And all of that was without working out. So I finally put him in a EMS suit. So you might have seen some of those videos, and I mean, he's changed, right? He was starting to look like our older brother, our half brother. and he was starting to kind of get down the trajectory of where my dad was headed, right? Where my dad was. And so, to see him change was also beautiful, because now he needs to make sure to step up, because he has a son who's 19 years old. I have a
Mm,
son. Like, we need to be examples. And that
mm,
example is like, we are in control of our health. So all that to say is that I think that's a good pivot into how the new year started, because now I'm back in New York and I've hit the ground running. I've cleaned up my apartment, got new furniture, got a bunch of things out, cleaning things up, man. You
yeah.
know?
No, that's smart. I think a lot of people sometimes I don't know. I think maybe it's part of it. It's definitely partially because there's this sort of consumer commodification culture in the West, where like New Year's is new resolutions. So you think you maybe have to add things on, but I think a lot of people, it's
Mm.
I don't know. The most important, it seems like, or the most practical, quote unquote, resolutions is more of like, what kind of BS do you need to strip away? What kind of baggage? What kind of things are you dragging that don't need, whether it's people or things in your life? And I think like whatever. I think that's, to me, seems like a little bit better maybe of approach, but it doesn't mean you can't be ambitious. So once again, man, like I think this is the right way to approach it. Sounds like you've really taken this about as healthily as you can, constructively utilized it, leveraged it with your relationships and your family, with what you want to do with your life. And um, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm sure there's always going to be a little bit of some, it always will be there, but it doesn't seem like, some people might just be like jump back into work just to kind of distract from it and not really process the grief and stuff. I'm not
Right.
really getting that vibe, and nor am I a shrinker,
No,
qualified really, but it doesn't seem like
well
that
said.
either.
Well said. I was very mindful of that for myself and for my brother,
Mm-hmm,
because I know that it's easy, because I love my work, and
mm-hmm,
it's easy for me to hide behind it. But before I even took any psilocybin, the night that I was with my son and daughter, it just, this wave of emotions came over me while they were sitting at the table with me.
mm-hmm,
And what was powerful about that moment is that, like, maybe in the past I would have tried to hide it or whatever, but to actually watch my son and my daughter see me cry
mm-hmm,
and tell them that, that it's okay to cry,
mm-hmm,
was a very powerful moment. And that was the jump start to everything, right? And
mm-hmm,
then when I got back to Oklahoma, that was when I was able to do even more. In fact, I'm long-winded. I can talk, I can speak a lot, I can do all these things. And when it came time to speak at my dad's funeral, my half brother, my brother Mario, our nephew Eric's son. So I have a half brother who's older than both my brother and I, Mario. His name is Eric. He has a son named DeAnthony. So that's my nephew. So I was thinking to myself, I don't know if I'm going to be able to speak. I don't know if I can contain myself. And my brother gets up there, then my half brother gets up there, then my nephew gets up there, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I got to get up there too, right? Because I think my dad would appreciate, and I think all the people who came to support would appreciate hearing from me. And it was just like, as soon as I put the microphone to my mouth, it just was like this flood of emotion came over me, because I was so thankful for all the faces that I saw in front of me. And it's just like, I thought to myself, my brother, how did you keep it together? To my brother, my half brother, and my nephew. Everybody was up there, you know, saying a few jokes here and there, and talking about all these things. And I'm like, well, how are you guys keeping this together? But I also know that we have to get this out, because I could have hid behind my work because I love my work so much, but I wanted to give myself time. That's why I just got back a few days ago here in New York, because I wanted to give myself time with no work,
mm-hmm,
right? And here we are. Now I'm back into the throes of it. I feel very good with where I'm at mentally, still checking in.
mm-hmm.
And, here we are, tackling Simply Walk the Talk.
Beautiful, man. And to kind of put a button on it and transition, I think this is, this whole show, and it's all about simply walking the talk. So this is obviously one of the strongest catalysts or tests, whatever you want to label it, of your ability to continue to walk that talk through some of the hardest moments. And we're all going to experience it, and transitioning death, whatever you want to call it, is something that's going to come for us all at some point. And I'm of the opinion to lean into it, to accept it. There's a lot of cultures that actually embrace it and celebrate it more, and to see it as something beautiful in a way, and it's and needed for, you know, all life. You know, it's just constant cycles, right? So the more we can try to mitigate and understand it, and really shift from fear-based to love-based of it, I think it, for me, it's made me a lot healthier and happier person. And I think a lot of people, it's one of the big fears, especially when you see it with people close to you. You start thinking about it more, and yeah. So well said. And I'm definitely of that opinion. And for me, when I'm transitioning, I want it to be a party, and I definitely want it to be, I don't know, I've got my own whole maybe shebang I want to do, but speaking of, let's see if I can pull this transition off. Speaking of death, a little, oh God, a little cold. But in the news, we've got Mr. Jeff J. Epstein, J. Eps, popping up again, and we're just going to touch on some big stories to kind of wrap this up here. This is kind of a mixture of a reacts and an SWTT update, and we'll share screens and give you guys the cool look here. So we're going to go through just some of the top YouTube channels, you know, that we love, and you all know most of these are pretty big names, from Russell Brand to Joe Rogan, Tim Dillon, Breaking Points, The Hill, just some of the good current event shows / comedy. You and I both tend to like those just because they bring a mixture of levity, but also, you know, education and informing. We can start though. I'll just kind of go through. We'll just do some reacts to some of the big headlines today. As of recording, the big one is Epstein. So Tim Dillon, I highly recommend everyone. We can put the link in the description. Did a great breakdown of it, as well as Breaking Points and The Hill. But what are some of just your initial reactions? I mean, for me, I know this was, and I'll kind of just put it on mute here, but I know for me, this was a lot, not too much surprise. But what are some of your initial reactions? And then we can play some of these little parts of these clips if we want as well. Actually, I'll just play the beginning of it, and then we'll get to set it up for you.
Big reveals yesterday. This was much anticipated. Unsealing of court documents revealing some of the depositions with regards to Jeffrey Epstein. We can go ahead and break this down. Let's put this up on the screen. This is from CBS News. Their news article writes, Jeffrey Epstein contact names released by court. Here are key takeaways from those unsealed documents. And let me just give you a little bit of their synopsis, and then we can show you some of the specifics. So they say, documents that include the names of more than 100 people connected to Jeffrey Epstein, including business associates and accusers, among others, were made public on Wednesday, following a federal judge's December ruling that information must be unsealed. More than 900 pages of mostly unredacted documents were released. They indicate, and I think this is accurate, much of the information has been previously reported. However, to see the actual specifics is still quite noteworthy. And they mention this is Virginia Giuffre. This is part of her now settled defamation lawsuit. That's the context of all of this information and these depositions. She had accused British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell of enabling her abuse by Epstein. And Maxwell, of course, was found guilty back in 2021. Gosh, it's been that long now, of enabling that abuse. And so some of the names here, you're not going to be surprised. We've got Britain's Prince Andrew. We've got Bill Clinton.
Bubba.
We've got Donald Trump. Bubba. We've got Alan Dershowitz. And we can show some of those details. Let's go ahead and put this first one up on the screen. So this probably was the biggest piece that people were sharing. Let me just read this. This is, again, part of a deposition. They say, let me back up. Do you know Bill Clinton was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein? This person says, I knew he had dealings with Bill Clinton. I did not know they were friends until I read the Vanity Fair article about them going to Africa together. Question, did Jeffrey ever talk to you about Bill Clinton? Answer, he said one time that Clinton likes them young, referring to girls. Ryan,
gross.
Yes.
Gross. This is the reporting says this is Johanna Stoberg, one of the.
So I can go some, and I haven't. I've looked into this a lot, and I haven't looked at these docs, the 900 pages and specifics. But for me, it's a lot of confirmation of a lot of smoke that independent journalists and documentary and various people diving into this and podcasts had already kind of brought up, and speaking with Virginia herself and these various victims, but. Yeah, we'll go through just some quick. Yeah, what are your big takeaways so far?
Yeah, no surprise here. However, I'm glad they finally released these documents, and it's interesting now to hear everything that is kind of being talked about, which makes me wonder why, what's the distraction now, right? Because like we don't really hear much about Ukraine anymore. We don't hear much about what's happening in Gaza. At least today, we don't, right? Or these last couple of days, we don't. And so, and then also like when I listened to a couple of those pieces that you sent me, I thought it was very interesting in the way that certain media outlets prefaced this rolling out of documents, kind of trying to get people to understand what a friendship actually means, and trying to say that just because people are on the plane doesn't mean this and that, and then to say that like yeah, they certain people just needed a ride. And it's like some of these people are the most powerful people in the world. They don't need a ride with Jeffrey Epstein. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
especially multiple
excuses.
times,
Right.
and after he was already convicted or alleged to have certain dealings, right? So it's like, wait, you still need to ride with him? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah,
that's
Tim
my
Dillon made like a
reaction.
hilarious point about that. He's like, I can get a charter plane to like Tampa's like Chuckles, right? Like these people have a hard time. Like, come on, man. Like, and then yeah, and Tucker here is also, he interviewed his brother, whether you like him or not. Like once again, this is, he's talking to a very direct source, the brother Epstein, and there's all these videos coming out of his brother trying to get information about his brother and what happened to him, like him showing up at the police precinct and them not having records from like the fire department or something. Just all these like, very like sloppily done chains of custody type things. And essentially, once again, this is getting so overwhelming to where, I think most people are really starting to have to look really harder at these things and accept some harder truths, which I think overall will be for the better. And I think this is going to lead to much, much more powerful and bigger strings if it is allowed to be unveiled. The judge I think it was the judge in Virgin Islands, who was the original one who allowed this to all come out. So just seeing things like that really gives me a lot of hope as far as like, will justice be restored to the victims and the people who are part of this that are still running free, and seeing judges and defense attorneys and various people in the private public sector stepping up is a beautiful and optimistic thing to see. And I think people should keep that in mind when it seems dark at times to look into some of the stuff. Remember that like this is a necessary purge though, or else we're just enabling it to some degree indirectly by looking the other way. And so the sooner we deal with this and purge, just like puking or pooping when you have a purge you need to do, we got to detox, freshen it all out, clean it out, like you were talking about, and then we can move forward stronger. So this is part of our collective purging, hopefully that will keep occurring into 2024. Nothing too much bigger on that story, I feel like. So we can jump to the next one. And like I said, we'll share all the best videos we think talking about these. Once again, we are trying to approach all this stuff from a pretty nonpartisan lens. It's just about the truth and following, where there's good corroborating evidence, and not trying to make this left or right type thing. So let me pull it up. You showed me this, but why don't you set up this Shannon Sharp Katt Williams? I'm not as, give me the.
Okay, so a good friend of mine, Shaker Pie, sent me a clip, or actually sent me the whole podcast of Shannon Sharp. I forget the name. Oh, yeah, it's called Club Shay Shay. So that's Shannon Sharp's podcast. Yeah. He had on Katt Williams. Katt Williams, for those of you who do not know, is one of the greatest comedians of all time. I'm a huge comedy fan, and Katt Williams is very high up on my list, always has been. And when I saw that he was on Shannon Sharp's podcast, I was kind of like, why is he on Shannon Sharp's podcast? Like, what is it about? And apparently it was because he wanted to come in to kind of set the record straight. And so as I was listening to this, I thought, ooh, I need to send this to Gordon so we can do a SWTT reacts on this, because, this is like something we really need to talk about, because it's all of a sudden trending everywhere. So right up there with Epstein is Katt Williams on Shannon Sharp's podcast, especially in the Black community, because basically Katt tried to set the record straight by saying that some of the things that other comedians who came on to Shannon Sharp's show, what they said, he was like, is blatantly false. They're just outright lying on certain things. And I think it's a really good insight into what happens not only in Hollywood, but in comedy and in the Black culture. So if you
Mm.
kind of want to get a handle on what's happening, this is a really good. And I'm telling you, I know I could just feel it by watching Shannon Sharp, his reaction. Like he was blindsided by all this because he's kind of like, look, I don't know if I'm gonna be canceled after the
Hmm.
airing this.
And these guys are my
But
friends, and this I'm
yeah,
not here to, but yeah.
yeah,
Cat doesn't give
yeah.
a fuck. I mean, Katz is probably one of the most base comedians you can get. He's up there with Chappelle. Like,
Oh yeah.
he does not
Oh
give a fuck
yeah.
about people's opinions. I mean,
Oh yeah.
for the most part, you know.
And also, I think like just I need to say this because like as I'm sitting there listening to everything, I'm trying to be very neutral because I also am fans of some of the other people that he talked about, and it makes me think like, whoa, I didn't know that was going on. But I think one of the biggest surprises out of all that is Kevin Hart, and it's like, whoa, the things he talked about with Kevin Hart is like, yo. But there was one piece in there that I was like, all right, Cat, come on now, because Cat Williams is very small. He's a small dude. I think he's like 5 feet, maybe 5'2", right? And no shade whatsoever, but like he was mentioning at some point in there about how he's basically at his age, he's still an athlete. He's had to kind of come up and fight for everything he's ever had to do, and that if he wanted to, he could go outside right now and run a 4.340 or 4.140, and then he started to say he could run sub, and that's when he got cut off because Shannon Sharp was like, wait, I know 40 times. He didn't really say this, but he kind of was just like, wait, what? Because he thought he was joking. And then I saw on social media that I forgot who it was. One of the other comedians out there was just like, say what you want about Cat Williams, but he ain't lying. And he showed a video of Cat Williams running outside with some lady. And I kind of chuckled at that because although he smokes the lady, neither one of them are running a 4.340. I can promise you that. Okay.
That's NFL. That's like,
I mean, come on now.
under
Come on.
4.4, bro, you can try out.
Like
Like,
I don't
what?
think I've never run a 4.4, right? And so, Kat, you're telling me like I will race you right now. No.
But wait,
warm-up.
now I'm a little confused because I'm coming at this all fresh, and I'll play a slight little bit of this to give people taste. But
Auditioned in Los Angeles.
Yes.
I was audition number 201.
so this is him calling out Steve Harvey, Kevin Hart, Cedric.
Comedians auditioned for the role of Money Mike with me.
So-
You're
Oh, yeah.
saying all 201 of us was auditioning and you had already had the role and had already shot the role in 4 days?
Okay, pause it 1 second.
The
Okay,
truth
so
is-
so obviously like his physique and those things, but what's the main beat? Is just that like because essentially these people he's calling out, as you said, the kings of comedy. Like that's the
Yeah.
headline.
I can give you a really quick, situation for that. Basically, I think it was Ricky Smiley. It was Ricky Smiley, and maybe it was I think it was Ricky Smiley.
Cedric, Kevin, and Steve Harvey. It says
So
here.
Ricky Smiley, he's not known as a king of comedy, but he's one of my favorites, right? I love Ricky Smiley. I follow him still to this day. But apparently Ricky Smiley went on Shannon Sharp's show or somebody's show and said that Cat Williams essentially stole the role of Money Mike from Cat Williams. And so Cat Williams comes into the show and is just like, wait, Shannon, how can you sit there and let this man lie to your face? And Shannon Sharp is like, look, I'm thinking that this is like, breaking news and that this is some undiscovered thing. He's like, how would I know whether this dude is lying or not? And he's just like, bro, I was audition member number 201. I went in there and there is no Money Mike without Cat Williams because he created Money Mike, right? The things that they had set in the audition or in the script for this character called Money Mike was totally different.
And does he have proof of like stand-up sets where he brings out that character, or like does he have receipts to say like I did create this character?
Well, there's a couple instances he talks about on the show. So he created it once he got the role, right? So once he got the role, he created it. And there were some things in there, like I think there was one point in which that character was supposed to be, let's call it rooped, and replace the U with an A because we don't want to say that on here. But he was supposed to get taken advantage of in a bathroom. And Cat Williams is like, look, I'm cool with most everything on here, but like we can be funny without showing that type of content, because that's just not what I'm into. And so most people probably would have went ahead and accepted that. They probably would have even accepted to be in a dress, which he talks about on here as well. But he's like, look, that's not me. I'm not doing it. If you want me to do this role, then we're gonna do it. You know, we're not gonna do it that way. We can
Yeah,
we
and
can have
hasn't Chappelle had similar incidents? I mean, I guess not with the
Yes.
same people, but this is part of this like emasculation, like
Yes.
power control that the Hollywood industrial complex does as a way to like basically bitch you. To be like, look, know your role. And it's this weird indirect form of like casting couch stuff where it's all about just establishing dominance in a way. And so,
And
but,
think about all
yeah.
your favorite comedians in movies. Okay,
Right,
because
right.
comedy is different, like stand-up comedy is different than movie stars, right? So he talks about that a little bit.
Right.
But of all the ones that you can think of, how many of them, especially black men, okay, how many of them have been emasculated like that?
Yeah, right,
A lot of them.
right, right.
A lot of them.
And so he's saying this is also a form of racism. Essentially, this is a way to like discriminate, like indirectly discriminate of like,
Yeah.
because like,
in
because
a
are
way.
they saying it's proportionally black actors versus white actors or other actors, or is it
I
general?
mean, I don't know how much of this is
yeah,
BS or conspiracy theory. I can only go based on what he said, but I did watch a thing. I think it was with Jamie Foxx or somebody else, but someone at that level, and they talked about this, that this runs rampant, and that there are certain powers that be that say that that's sort of your induction into
Yeah.
the world of Hollywood, especially
Right.
Black Hollywood. And so why? I mean, who knows why? But like, I mean, I guess it's the casting couch situation, right? Like,
Yeah.
they talk about what's that guy's name who was the kind of the forefront of the Me Too movement? What's his name? Not
Smollett?
Epstein, but no,
sorry, not me too.
the other guy.
Sorry.
Something Steen. Feinstein?
Weinstein.
No.
Eric, or
Weinstein,
Not
Weinstein,
Eric,
yeah.
not Eric. Yeah, the Weinstein Company, but it's Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein. Yes,
Not Eric.
thank you.
He's cool.
So, like they may not emasculate people in the way that they do maybe necessarily in the black community in Black Hollywood,
Mhm.
but in that field there was another form of like power and
for sure.
and whatever, which is you got to sleep with this guy
For
in order
sure.
to get ahead. So similarities but different.
But it's exactly. And there's a lawyer. We'll move to the next. But there's a lawyer in Hollywood who's got a great blog that's gone famous, and I'm totally blanking on it. People probably know, but he's an entertainment lawyer, and he's written about this anonymously for years. And a lot of people, friends in the business, had shown me and talked to me about it. But he's just like, I know these because they're clients, and I know this because I go to these parties with these people. But it's, yeah, and the whole history of Hollywood's really fucked up when you look at the studio system and how all that. But we'll keep a trace on this. So I guess at this point, though, there's still massive beef between them.
Apparently.
All right.
I mean, let's see what the fallout is, right?
Yeah.
Because kind of like the fallout with all this Epstein stuff coming out, there's going to be more. I can
Right.
guarantee you that. And the same thing with this Cat Williams stuff. Like, there will be more. I can guarantee you that. So let's see.
Okay, cool. So it's a little bit dated now, but obviously there's more and more wild stuff happening with UFOs. People like Tucker Carlson are getting really into it with really big platforms and asking questions, having on Tim Burchett. We'll keep an update on that, and if there's any big things. Right now it was all with like Senator Schumer, and what he was doing was a major thing within the House, and the upcoming presidential election could have a major impact on it as well. But I don't have anything too specific. There's something we did earlier, but we won't spend too much on that for now. Obviously, what's happening in Gaza, you touched on with Roger, and I've been following, and is a really pretty only getting worse and worse type situation. We recommend checking out Hill TV's coverage on it, as well as Breaking Point's coverage on it. Any sort of follow-ups you wanted to have on that, just with being with Roger. And I know you talked about that's pretty wild hearing about the different hotels and how they were treating you guys. I didn't know that, but that's, that shows how far this is affecting all different elements. And it unfortunately only looks like it's kind of getting worse. It doesn't look like it's, the military industrial complex is in any way trying to slow it down from our end. Whatever side you're on, I think most rational people just want a de-escalation and they want peace at this point. This is obviously a very emotional topic, but you got to look at it as best you can, the overall situation. And I don't know, you want to touch on that? I mean, you're seeing now the human rights trials trying to,
Yeah.
put on the Israeli government, and it's getting pretty bad, but it's, yeah, go ahead if you want to.
I get weirded out when in any situation, doesn't matter if we're talking about Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Palestine, sex trafficking versus, anytime that a population, a group of people is silenced for having certain thoughts to raise a discussion or to, create discussion, when they're silenced by government and certain actions are taken to literally change the course of someone's livelihood, that's when I begin to go, wait a minute, what's really behind all of this? And I see that just like what happened during the George Floyd protest and everything that happened there, like, it's like, if you say one thing, that automatically means you're on that side. And if you say another thing, that means you're on the other side. And it's happening constantly. Oh, that video, by the way, before I finish up, that video of the guy jumping over the attacking the judge. Oh my, I saw the full thing, by the way, like from different angles. Oh, it's insane. It's insane. I'll send it to you afterwards. But
go ahead, I'll play it while you're talking.
But what's interesting is that I just think all I should say is we should be mindful that if we're unable to speak about a certain topic without certain repercussions, then we should be leery of any side. That's
100%.
it.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, and there's a lot of great minds. Holy shizer, that's crazy. He just made his whole entire situation so much worse. What an idiot.
Oh yeah,
Jeez,
yeah,
what are you thinking,
bro. Like
dude?
I'm gonna send you
unless
the.
dirty
I'll
one to
send you-
life, but oof.
Well, probably, but
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, he
scary.
definitely is
No,
now.
that's
I mean,
not- that almost makes him want to put up some sort of barrier at this point. It's gonna like.
he was mollywopping her, bro.
That's crazy.
He dove like a flying squirrel. Anyway.
No, I mean, you look at any situation, and this kind of actually is a good segue to just touch on quickly. Alex Jones' return. He's on Tucker Carlson talking. Tucker's got his new show, TCN. This idea of the First Amendment, the freedom of speech. When you look historically, any situation where they're pushing censorship, it never turns out well. It never turns out well. Give me any example. So we're not obviously advocating for inciting violence, and there's limitations to the First Amendment for a reason as well. But and there's a lot of research that goes into this, and somebody I respect that's really done a lot of research into this is Bill Ottman, and we had him on another podcast was on, and he's talked about all the research behind when you don't allow more speech and you suppress it or censor it and push it into these echo chambers, it creates more radicalization and more yes groups where there's this circular thinking and makes more people incentivized to be extreme. So even if we're all, the outcome we all want is more love and peace and people just critically thinking and getting along, and like most rational people, not people coming at this from an authoritative angle, then objectively, where the science points is just more speech. The answer to bad speech is more speech, and showing through the merit of your ideas and the freedom, the market of ideas, that you can, argue your case. That's how it's always been, and we've learned. I thought we had really learned this a while ago, but I think, unfortunately, people need to realize, I think there is, even if a good intent, the people really leading the charge on these things, there is an insidious side to this where they would like to use it as a mechanism of control, essentially. And I can give you plenty of examples of people that really break that down. Noam Chomsky being right at the top of the list, manufacturing consent and understanding this. But we do really need to understand propaganda never died. It's really only morphed. A lot of these PR companies are just really essentially propaganda outlets, and you need to be wary of where you get your information, how you discern it. Are you getting a broad spectrum of information from both sides, and trying to not be emotional right out the gate? Doesn't mean you can't be, but really trying to first just get all the facts and things before you choose a very hardline emotional response. And the last thing I'll say is I just always try to use my principles as my guiding post. I don't like something, is it within my principles that this is, so once again, Alex Jones might be the worst person on the face of the earth to you, and totally you think he's insane incarnate, but you have to understand, look at this from a little more of a legal standpoint as a precedent and what's going to be good for the systemic design and setting good precedents, even if you disagree with every single thing he says. So,
well said. Well said, bro. Well
I think
said.
that's the last, major story we wanted to cover.
There will be more, everyone. Trust me. And this is not going to be just a continuance of recaps. I've got some exciting guests lined up. I've got some really cool new workouts and products. And part of the thing that I did do is I finally rewrote a book I had been working on for a long time, and it's not quite finalized yet, but be on the lookout for a new book. And, just a number of things. Like, I'm hitting the ground running, because now I'm like, look, I am going to leave a legacy. I'm going to do what I set out to do and just keep fighting the good fight. And, I hope you're here to watch it unfold, because it's going to be exciting.
Oh yeah,
That's
man.
that.
Oh yeah, guys. Much love to everyone going into 2024. As Josh said, got some cool, exciting things coming ahead with content and guests. And as you're seeing, we're always evolving the show with the production and video and audio, and trying to get this looking and sounding as optimal as possible for your viewing experience. So appreciate you guys staying with us on that front as well. And I think we're getting pretty damn close as far as that. So
Yes.
yeah.
All right. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. Feel free to share this content if you enjoyed it, or even if you didn't. Feel free to share. All right. This is Josh signing out from Simply Walk the Talk. Peace.
Simply walk the talk.
Walk the talk, talking facts. Move like me, but I move a little fast. Make my move, here to last. Fasten these seatbelts, I'm coming past. Take care of me, longevity. Hack my biology, better believe. Walking the talk, soul, mind, and body connected. Better come give us a listen.